Night's match, BBC Radio Humberside from 7 this evening, so don't miss it. 7 o'clock this evening here on BBC Radio Humberside for full coverage of North Ferriby. 7:37.
Now, students at the University of Hull will soon have their say on whether or not to be part of the National Union of Students, or the NUS, as you might have heard it referred to. A referendum will be held on the 20th of May, so we thought we'd find out a little bit more about this. With us now is University of Hull student Christian Calgie. Good morning.
Morning.
Tell us a little bit about the NUS. Probably the reason people will have heard of it this morning is because often places say 10% off if you've got an NUS card.
Yes.
That's about it.
That's the main kind of face of the NUS, but it claims to have a much bigger role. It claims to be the union for 7 million students, and in that vein, people have started to question whether it does truly represent us, whether it's cost effective, and whether there are better alternatives.
The question's got to be asked, why do students need a union?
Well, there are a lot of student issues, and the government often feels that students are an easy kind of demographic to get one over on, so they can make cuts, they can increase university tuition fees, because they know often it's younger people that are less politically engaged, so it's easier to make those cuts in those areas than, say, pensions. And that way, I think we do need some sort of union in order to motivate and in order to vocalise our interests. But I would say that the National Union of Students is not the union to advocate those policies most effectively.
What's wrong with it at the moment, do you think?
Well, there's a number of reasons, but we would say the main ones are the fact that it doesn't really represent us. The conference was a few weeks ago. It was 3 days, and in that 3 days, they passed motions against the United Nations. They passed motions against Israel. They are trying to perceivably ban a very popular university social media app called Yik Yak on the grounds that it gives ground to trolls. And so we say that if it can't even fill 3 days worth of things with issues that actually affect students, then really it's run its course.
I wonder whether leaving is the right way to protest, though. Surely you vote in somebody better to run it, rather than... Because the whole point of a union is that it's everybody together.
Yes, well... Interestingly, there was a kind of delegation from Oxford University that went with the hopes of reforming it this time round. In fact, I was watching a debate from Exeter University yesterday, who are also holding a referendum. One of the people advocating disaffiliation in the referendum they had on affiliation 18 months ago, wanted to stay in the NUS in the hope that it would be reformed. However, successive years... conferences rejected the main reform that people want to see, which is the way we elect our representatives and our president. Currently, the only people that can vote for the president are the delegates, meaning that of the 7 million students the NUS claim to represent, only 700 can vote for the president.
Right.
And we wanted to change that, and we were really hoping that we could get that through, and then we could start afresh. People would have their say, and we could reform it. They've rejected it year after year, and I think primarily because they don't want to see reform. They like the way it is. They like the way it's a sort of career politician training ground. It's a feed-in for various political parties. And they kind of want us to be paying £50,000 a year to fund what they perceivably see it as a kind of residential Oxford union, in a way, to go and debate these policies which have nothing to do with students.
So do you think we'll end up seeing an NUS 2, another union sprouting up?
There are...
I mean, teachers have various unions.
Yeah, of course, and I'd like to see... if anything, choice, because obviously there really is only one main one. But in Scotland, there are hardly any student unions that are affiliated with the NUS. And if even half, I think there's 20 student universities having referendums on affiliation at the moment, if only half of those voted to disaffiliate, that's a significant amount of students. That's a good amount of clout that we'd have to form a union and get kind of discounts and things.
Will you still get your 10% off in Topshop? That's the big question, isn't it?
Well, the funny thing is that the only discount I use from any sort of student organisation is to get 50% off my Spotify membership. I don't get that through the NUS. I get it through an organisation called Uni Days, which offers 75% of the discounts the NUS offers, but without the sign-up fee. We don't get the discounts through the £50,000 a year union affiliation costs. Individual students have to pay £30 for the NUS extra membership card to get those discounts.
OK. Let me play you this clip just finally. Richard Brooks here. He's the NUS Vice President for Union Development and a former president of the University of Hull Students' Union. He's been in this studio many times. He wasn't available this morning, but he told us that the NUS does 3 important things. Have a listen to this.
NUS is the representative voice of 600 students' unions and through them 7 million students across higher education, further education and apprenticeship. And we do 3 main things. One is that we campaign and lobby effectively on behalf of students, and we've done that for a many number of years, and that's everything from getting students exempt from council tax all the way through to raising the apprentice minimum wage, as well as stopping students getting sanctioned for non-academic fines. So that's the first part. The second part is that we develop students' unions. So there's 600 students' unions up and down the country. We offer support to the students' unions, advice, training to the elected student leadership, legal advice for when students' unions need that, and everything around basically making students' unions as strong and sustainable as possible. And then the third thing we do is that we co-create wealth within the student movement to save students money. So, for instance, our deal with the co-op through the NUS Extra Card, which has 180 different partners on it, saves students over £2 million since its inception, all the way through to co-creating wealth with the student movement in general to put back into students' unions so they can run campaigns, events, society, sports teams and other forms of student opportunity. So they're the 3 main things that we do.
That's Richard Brooks speaking there and pointing out some of the good work they do. And I have to say, we've had the NUS in before on a range of political issues, on issues that do affect students, and they've had a voice and they've had an input. So are you ignoring the good work they do and focusing on the bits you don't like?
As with every debate like this, there's nuance to be had about it, and I think we shouldn't exclude. The NUS has done good things in the past. It's advocated minority rights for students, and it's done a lot. But I think since 2010, when the tuition fees were increased to £9,000 a year, the NUS I think failed to publicly represent students as well as it could do, and since then it's very much been infiltrated by quite a hardline set of students, and are doing a disservice to the students it claims to represent.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The referendum will be held on the 20th of May. Students at the University of Hull will have their say on whether or not to be part of the National Union of Students. Does it matter a jot to me, Christian? I don't mean this in a rude way. Why should I care if I'm not a student? Does it make any difference to me?
I mean, I've got to be honest, for the most part it doesn't, but I'd say that 7 million students is a lot of people, and a lot of political issues don't affect a lot of others, but you have a kind of altruistic approach to caring about things.
OK. Christian, thank you. Christian Calgie from the University of Hull. It's 7:45.